This is Her Truth Revealed, a podcast for women in midlife who are done performing strength and ready to live, lead, and build from truth. If you've spent years holding everything together, being capable, dependable, and quietly exhausted, this space was made for you. I'm Wonderful Morrison, and for the last few years, I've held space for other women's stories. Now I'm opening space for my own. This new chapter is not just about sharing personal stories. It is a love story with myself. And if you're here, it is likely because something in you is ready for that too. Through solo reflections and guided conversations, we explore the quiet transitions, the deep healing, and the remembering that happens when a woman stops performing and starts listening inward. This is not about fixing yourself. You are not broken. It's about returning to who you have always been, beneath the roles, the expectations, and the armor that once kept you safe. If you are longing for language or what you feel permission to soften in a place where your truth does not need to be explained or justified, you are in the right place.
Wonderful Morrison, founder and CEO of Lead Her Brand Marketing Consulting Agency, digital creator, podcaster, daughter, sister, wife, mom, grandmother, woman extraordinaire, and my best friend number 37. Now, that is an inside joke between Wonderful and I, but Wonderful, I think we need to make this an outside joke since, you've got audience, listeners, and viewers here. So would you like to do the honors of how you became best friend number 37?
So that is such a funny story because Sonia has a community of friendships that she's had since day one. Like the moment she opened her eyeballs, the community that she comes from is a tribe of gatherers, which is very common in the way humans exist. We've all been very tribal, but you have a very unique space because in the US, it's such a broad, wide space that relatives live far apart from each other, right? There's certain sections, but you were just like when I met you and you told me that, oh, yeah, you're going to your cousins, whether it's a blood cousin or not a blood cousin, birthday party this weekend, but not just one day of the weekend. It's like every day of the weekend, right? There's a Friday party, a Saturday, all not the same person either. And I was like, oh my gosh. And the more I got to know you, it's not like a fantasy world. It's a real world where you are immersed in weddings, baptism, birthday parties, babies being born, bridal showers. And it's from multi-generation, from babies to grandmothers. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And the relationship with each person is strong. It's a strong bond. And I was like, wow, you have a lot of best friends. And then we kept bonding and I've been inducted into best friend, I think just based on my count, I think I'm number 37. So it's been an ongoing thing ever since.
Yeah.
And then
And there were times that you moved up that ladder, by the way, because somebody else fell off, right?
yes, absolutely. And that's always, and I know it. I have the count. So when it's like, oh, okay. So that means I'm number 36 now. And it's so funny because you don't count. You don't even know. You don't even know what I'm talking about. You're like, what? I have count though. So
Well,
that's where that
side, you are truly a best friend, but more than that, there's just been this undeniable soul connection between you and I ever since, we did start hanging out and getting to know each other, which now is going on 15 years, which is crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. And, I would like to share with your viewers, my first impression of you, even before I met you, and you actually may not know this. Um, People may remember Groupon. I don't even know if Groupon exists anymore. It's back in like 2011. They did an offer for Zumba classes, which I was like sign me up, anything to do with dance, combine it with fitness, great. And so it was at wonderful. And her husband owned a dojo, and bought the group on, and there was a number on there to call to sign up for class. And so I call this number, I leave a message. I'm like, hey, I would like to attend such and such date. Can you call me back and let me know if it's okay to attend? Not sure how all this works. I never heard back. And me being this wonderful knows this about me, very anal retentive person. I don't like, I will go and knock on people's doors, to get an answer. I didn't hear back. A few days goes by and I'm like, do I just show up? What's going on here? So I don't remember how it all happened. I did end up going to that class. It was great. I'm a creature of habit. So the next class I went back to my same spot, which was in the front corner. Did the Zumba, and then I was done. I'm out of there the minute that it's done. I'm not socializing with anyone because I can be a little bit of an introvert in the beginning. And then I don't remember if it was that first class or, a subsequent class. In walks this woman in the middle of class, long, flowing, ravenous hair, beautiful woman. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. And then I was like, oh, just immediately intimidated. And then I look over and said woman is just jamming. Like she is not a care in the world. She is doing her own thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is unapologetically herself. And I feel like that is such a rare thing to come across. So whether or not you agree with people who are unapologetically themselves, like, whoever they may be, for me at least, I absolutely admire and adore and appreciate people who can genuinely be themselves and not give a care in the world. And that is what you gave off. Like I was like, my gosh, this woman is fascinating. She's beautiful and she is not afraid to be who she is. Did that make me go up and talk to you? No, I was still intimidated, but somehow we started to connect, and Wonderful and I just, we formed this really deep bond right away. And, we had fun, mind you, lots of fun, but there was just this depth and of conversation that we had, and it was discussing ideas and spirituality and, you know, just so much. And I always looked forward to that. I mean, how wonderful. And back in the day, we hung out a lot. And a few years into our friendship, we took a road trip. Go, drop or pick up your daughter, your eldest, from college. And, we're sitting in a car having one of our many conversations. And it was a jaw dropping moment for me when you told me that you don't see yourself as vulnerable. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, wait, like, and it didn't feel like deception by any means. It was just more of like, oh my gosh, this person doesn't see themselves the way that I see them. And so,
To do with the lack of vulnerability makes me less confident in who I am. So it's kind of a contrast of what you described as unapologetic. And I'll explain what that is. And I just wanted to share that, I'm not sure how to describe it because I'm a confident person, but I was not confident about being vulnerable.
I mean, that makes sense. Vulnerability is a very hard thing, whether it's with yourself or with another person. So that makes sense. But it was just so jaw dropping for me. I was like, I was floored. And I know, I was floored. Like I kept asking you, are you sure? It just, in my mind, it didn't make sense. But I have watched you, I've grow. I've been privy to that, which has been an honor. And so with that being said, you have this story to tell us, as we all do, but you've got this really special story and you're wanting to share your journey. And I, for one, really appreciate that. But I want to ask you, what led you to want to tell your story and why now?
That's a big question. And I kind of want to back up to that experience that you just shared, because everything you said about me, I'm feeling very honored that that's how you see me. But, we don't often see ourselves the way other people see us, right? And the reason when I walked into that Zumba class, the thing that I had struggled with my whole life is I'm extremely dyslexic. And so dance class was really tough for me because a lot of times when you're being instructed, the instructor's facing you. well, I don't do well when you're facing me because I see the opposite way. So in Zumba, it was tough because I kept going the opposite direction all the time. And by the time you got to me, I just kind of stopped being embarrassed because as a business owner, I can either not participate at all, right? And just be the overseer of the business, or I be a part of the situation, but I had to deal with my own insecurities of that I'm not ever really going to move the same way. And then it's not even a hidden, I'm not making the moves this way. I'm literally going the opposite direction. So that's kind of what you walked in, is that version of me where I just had to let it go because the business was more important than my insecurities. But then as we got closer, I had a really, for me, it was a really tough space because you had a community that is very open with each other. And I've always really struggled in that framework of community friendships because part of my life, I grew up in my native country of the Philippines. And then part of my life, I was in the US. I wasn't in either place long enough to really embed in the culture of my space. I could pretend to understand, but I never really fit in. Like fitting in was really a tough space. So I feel like at 52 years old, I have been hiding so much behind my academic smarts, my business successes and failures, my being a parent, right? Me being a wife, that nobody except for people I'm really close to, like you, knows me. And why I want to tell the story now is because I recognize I have 3 adult children that are between 30 and 24, and I want them to have a grasp of me when I'm gone. And the way to do that is to leave something like this. It just so happens I'm going to share it with the world, right? And I just feel like initially my desire was for my kids and grandkids to have this. But the work that I do is I work with women business owners 50 and over to help them create their messaging for their brand through their lived experience. And the truth is, how could I really help them if I'm not doing what I'm asking them to do? So I mean, it's a perfect storm of all the things: age, perimenopause, what I'm asking people to do that I need to do myself. And it's hard to surrender to something that's still hidden in you. So I feel like I can continue to just let it be passive and keep living my life. But I think somewhere along the way, that dam's going to break too, in one way or another.
Yeah.
And it still happens now.
It's just like the notion of, they say on the plane, when you're on the plane, if the masks fall, make sure you put the mask on on yourself before you help someone else. Same with the notion of self-care and also self-love. So I commend you for coming to that realization because I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think as women, especially, we can, when we're going through life and we're getting to a certain point in our lives, that we can really, really, truly speak to that because we're so busy taking care of others, in the process, we lose ourselves. So I am so excited for you to share this journey with all of us. uh, you know, Audience, you guys are in for such an awakening, just an awakening like no other. And I had the privilege of getting a sneak peek at a book that Wonderful is writing. It's phenomenal thus far. And so it is my honor to be here interviewing this phenomenal woman and helping to relay her journey. I would like to convey my hope for your audience by first telling just a quick story. So my father, who passed away last year in April, he was my best friend and I looked up to him, adored him. He was a scientist, also very spiritual. And I remember in my teens, we were driving somewhere. It was just me and him. And I had asked him, I grew up in the Hindu religion, although my dad called it a philosophy. I asked him, I said, Papa, I referred to him as Papa, do you believe that these Hindu gods and goddesses existed and, their stories are real? And there was a very long pause, and which was not unusual for my dad. But as he got older, I always thought that maybe it was a hard of hearing situation, but it wasn't. It was him being very thoughtful in his response. And he finally answered me and he said, that's not the question to ask. And
Mhm.
he was like, it doesn't matter. He said, what matters is what do you get out of their experiences? He likened it to having a personal moral story. And I loved that. I sat with it and it was carried me through now for like 35 years. And so my hope for your audience is that listening to your story, they get their own moral of the story and are able to carry that with them, those lessons as they navigate through life and through various challenges and as they continue to grow and challenge themselves. So I think everyone is in for a treat and I'm very excited to get started. So before we do that, wonderful. Any other words?
I am just really grateful that when I mean, I have been sitting on this idea for 2 years, and I'm really good at extracting stories out of others to help them organize how to tell their story. But I realize I am not so good at it with myself. And I've just been like, "Oh, how am I gonna do this? Where's this gonna go?" And when you were just so excited to help me through this as a artist with words, like the way that you see words and how you paint it in a verbal way and on paper, the way that Picasso uses paint. I am just like, okay, I guess this is the time. And I'm really grateful, beyond grateful that you are willing to do this with me because it's easy for me to interview people, but being interviewed has not been my cup of tea. So I'm trusting all of the universe to bring this into the most organic fashion that it needs to show up in. And I'm so grateful to be doing it with you. So thank you.
Thank you. And likewise. So I'm very excited about this. And I have to tell you, I mean, the first thing that hit me was in your prologue. I mean, I'm like, so the book is already that fascinating where something jumped out at me at the prologue. And it was so brilliant. So you mentioned that you had a moment where you couldn't unhear yourself. And I quote, a moment where something subtle but irreversible cracked open, not the verge of a breakdown, rather the precipice of a knowing. This is powerful. I want to know two things. What was the defining moment for you? What was this defining moment? And how were you able to discern that it was a knowing versus a breakdown?
Oh, gosh. Uh, I don't even know how to answer that in a way that, because there's so much going on in my head of like, oh, it was this, it was that, it was this. But really, I think my defining moment was years when my mother passed. My mother, she's been gone now 23 years. Because I thought it was sooner than that, right? I thought the defining moment I'd say like was 10 years ago
Mhm.
when my life imploded. But actually, I think the cracking of it started 23 years, 10 years prior to that, right? 23 years ago when my mom died. Because my mom and I had a very not an open relationship. Like my mother's an immigrant. I grew up in a culture that was very religiously rigid. And I grew up in an era where the adage was still women and girls and kids are meant to be seen, not heard. Right? So there wasn't a lot of open conversation, but I was curious and really early. And when she was dying of breast cancer, it was the first time my mother became a real human being to me because she unloaded. She shared every part of who she was with me in the 6 years prior to her death. And I didn't see it then, but what I recognize now was a gift from her to me that you get to share in a part of who I am so that you can get to know you. So
Oh,
I didn't know
wow.
that at the time until 10 years ago. I'd say it was 2018. A big life, earth shaking experience happened in my world. And the betrayal was so deep. And it broke my heart into a million pieces. And that was really a time in my life where I'm like, this sucks. This is hard. This is going to eat me alive. So I have two choices. I allow it to eat me alive, or I figure out how to survive. Now, I'm a Gen X. Survival is, we've got a heavy dose of survival. Yeah. So this was not a difficult decision to make. I'm like, I got it. Like, let me throw in a couple bottles of wine with it. So when that happened and my life imploded, and I was physically, mentally, and emotionally left alone. Like things were, it wasn't because I walked away. It's because it was taken from me, from my business to my husband to my normal everyday living. It was shattered. It was taken away. And I spent a few, I don't know, a lot of moments angry at it.
Yeah.
That's where I think I realized that breakdown and breakthrough was different because you can only stay in anger for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's asking you.
Yeah.
What I recognize is it was revealing me. I thought it was trying to break me. I'm thinking life is punishing me, like the universe is doing diarrhea dumps on me, like God is cursing me, right? I'm doing all the things that I think is outside of myself until I recognize, and I did it all. I did all kinds of I went to Reiki. I went to all of the things. I was trying to be all breathe in, breathe out, meditation, the whole thing. But no matter how much physical work or validation I was trying to create outside of me, the only way that it was shifting was when I got quiet with myself, which
That's a
that
hard thing to do.
that
Yeah.
was just it was I couldn't, and actually it was so hard that I started I had a phobia, like a legitimate phobia. I've always been afraid of rodents. Like that's not new.
No, it's not. I don't know about you.
During this time of breakthrough, my phobia was kicking in so hard that I couldn't sleep because every time I closed my eyes, I could literally feel.
I remember you said
So I'm like, oh, this is not happening. Oh my God, this is really, I got to figure something out. So that was the initial understanding of breakdown had to happen before breakthrough. That was the actual breakdown. The breakdown of my psychosis was attacking me. So it has to, I think all of us experience it. We just don't know because we either call it a breakthrough or a breakdown, or a
Yeah.
breakdown and a breakthrough. Either way, we think it's only one or the other. But I truly believe now that you can't have a breakthrough without an actual breakdown.
that resonates. There's a couple of things you said while you were talking that I'd like to touch up on. One is, you talked about when your mother was diagnosed with cancer, and I know that during that time you were her caretaker, and she just unloaded, and it was the first time you saw your mom as like human. Similarly, I came across this with my parents too, right? Just before, I think, a few years before my dad had passed. I came to the realization that, oh, wait, my parents they're human, they're flawed. And I think it was the first time where it was like, forgiveness is key, right? Like they've done their best in whatever capacity. And it was such a like freeing moment, right? Because, we put our parents, whether it's on a pedestal or just like, why didn't they do better, whatever it is. Was it like that for you too when you came to this realization?
Yeah, it really, and it was it was weird and confusing because again, it wasn't just this a natural relationship of parent and child where you feel separate, but it was very culturally ingrained also. Right. To honor your parents, to have this sort of reverence, an untouchable reverence. It's not like an admirational reverence. It's like a reverence of like, oh my gosh, you are right? But when she became that human being to me, it set me up for what I was going to be facing, right? 15 years down or 10 years down the road. That ability for her to be completely, she told me things that I never thought she would ever fess up to,
Yeah.
and she answered all my questions. Every question that I had any pain behind or any kind of curiosity, whether it was painful or happy, she answered it all. She answered it all honestly. She laid it all out on the line. That when she passed, I was more angry because now I can't ask her anymore. I can't talk to her anymore. But I realized that that was part of my healing process.
Yeah.
That's where it started. I just didn't pay attention. There's this book I love called The Alchemist, and he says when you ask the universe, when you ask out there where the universe can and everything around you conspires for you to have it.
Yes.
Didn't know that was like a legit thing. It's real. The energy is real. And so I kind of ignored a lot of whispers in the wind of, hey, go inward. Listen, let's get this wonderful thing together called wonderful. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I've read a couple books here. Like you and I have shared tons of books together. And I could get it logically in my brain. I just didn't know there's this other piece called embodying the thing. I didn't really recognize that because I have used my brain intelligence for survival for so long and it's worked out really well.
Speaking of survival, and that this leads into my second question that I have for you, choosing, when you said there was this like verge of breakdown and breakthrough, but, survival, obviously you're going to choose survival. Having gone through my own personal experiences, I've gone through several surgeries and the thing I'd hear from people is, you're so brave. And to me, it was always very like jarring when I'd hear that because to me, I didn't look at it as any other way as that this is survival. Like I have to do it. There's no alternative. Where do you think that comes from? The survival mode, I have to do it.
I think there's a few. I really love this question because I feel like we can't just be, as a human race, we can't just passively rely on what we see out in the world and hear of what the definition of survival is. I think there's instinctual versions of it, right? Like the Serengeti and the safari, like survival of.
The fight or flight.
But I also think that another piece of it is the generation you were raised by, right? So as a Gen X, we were raised predominantly by baby boomers, which is a wide range because there's the elders of that and then there's the youth of that, which were raised by the industrialists and, the people who made it through the stories of the grapes of wrath, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's that part, but then I think there's also the versions of us that were shaped through what we chose into as we were becoming more and more our adult selves.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's a lot of factors in it, but I think instinctually the survival mechanism is much more ingrained. And I don't want to be like, well, the millennials aren't survivors. There's the baby boomers are considered the greatest generation of
Yeah.
people because they've been through more wars and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's different parts of that, but the breakthrough, the breakdown and breakthrough, I think for me and the generation that raised me and the generation that are now just out there talking about the way that we survived has a lot to do with the pieces of us that were emotionally not addressed. I think a lot of my survival mechanism and our generation's survival mechanism is don't feel anything. Don't feel it, ignore it, just do the thing to help you get to the next thing, right? And anytime there's a problem, it's about let's find a solution ASAP. Why are we talking about it? We just didn't I feel like I was not groomed to be like, let's talk about feelings. Let's share.
Yeah. Well, especially as daughters of immigrants, right?
Oh, yeah. And there's that extra added thing of like, oh, you cannot shame the dynasty. You better stop or sit down, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think that survival mechanism wasn't necessarily anything other than we didn't know. How else is it? Like, I'm not trying to feel anything. I'm just trying to get to the next thing of the success I'm aiming for or the achievement I'm trying to accomplish.
Interestingly, and I do agree with you, I think our generation has grown up like that largely. But I've come across a lot of people in our generation too who, when it comes to survival, in my opinion, they'll kind of just bury their head in the sand
Mhm.
and ignore it. And to me, that's not, I don't know. I don't view that as survival. And maybe it's a coping mechanism for that person to survive. Cause I just look at it as it's not fight, it's flight, like, and so I don't know. It's interesting. And I think, there's getting into psychology and I'm not going to, delve deep here, but just, there's this nature versus nurture situation. And so, I have to wonder just how many people are really looking deep within themselves and asking the hard questions of like, what am I doing to contribute to who I am versus like, the generation I grew up in or the parents who raised me or the community that raised me. Right. So that was just a quick sidebar because I do not want to derail from your incredible journey. So like I said, reading through the portion of the book that you have ready already, again, so many powerful moments. So you have this discovery of saying goodbye, I love this, to the good girl era. And you ask the question, who did I become to survive and what did it cost me? Now, there's a lot to unpack here. Okay. So let's break this down because I don't think that most of us realize that we're in survival mode, whether it presents itself in moments or if it's 100% of the time, if that's how we operate 100% of the time. And if we don't realize that we're in survival mode, well, then how can we possibly know that it's costing us anything? Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did you come to this realization? And also, as a follow up, who did you become to survive and what did it cost you?
So I didn't know, like you said, do we know that we're doing this on a regular basis? Like you get hints, right? As you're adulting through life, get little hints of, yeah, maybe that way of thinking and doing isn't working out. And then you just kind of like push through it. Like I'm a very push through the thing. I'm like a linebacker in life. Like we're pushing through this line. We're getting to the other side. What happened for me was really interesting. I started seeing a forgiveness coach.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mind blowing. So I am thinking as I'm getting into it, I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. I do need to forgive some things and some people. That's what I went in thinking I was going to do is I'm going to forgive people and things. I didn't realize what a deep dive it was into me, into why I was forgiving a situation, a person. Like, it's not enough to just say, I forgive the kind of father my father was as he was raising me. I need to understand what it walked me through was this deeper level of why this forgiveness needs to happen for me, why I need to let it happen for me, why it's so important to let go of the father my dad was to me, right? And because I've spent a lot of time, a lot of my adult life, I spent a lot of time just being angry at this guy. My dad was a hardcore iron rod kind of parent. Like
Yeah.
he parented where the world's coming to get you. So I'm going to shape you into a person that can deal with how hard life is. Right. And there's some physical hostility to that. Cause again, the era he grew up in is like, oh, beating your children is not, that's not new. As a matter of fact, it's needed. So, there was a lot of that going on, which my Gen X people will totally get. Yep. Beat downs were a thing.
Yes.
And, but also my dad had a really weird way of seeing the world very black and white when it came to parenting me, but he could live in the gray nonstop.
The hypocritical parent. Yes.
Yeah. So there's this confusing aspect of like, do what I say, but don't do what I do. Does that even make sense? And I feel like when I recognized, I mean, I was seeing the forgiveness coach until this day. I still have moments with her. For 2 years, I didn't see how much my people pleasing good girl was so ingrained in me. A lot of it was shaped because I'm just trying to not get hit again or be reprimanded again, right? Like I'm really trying to, I get so good at assessing my dad's personality, behaviors, moods that I'm molding myself to not getting hurt emotionally, physically, mentally.
Wow.
And that really shaped so much of my good girl. But at the same time, I had a real tough exterior. I'm like, please bring it. What else? What else you got? Right. Because I also came from parents that are like, oh, that's nice. You got an A, but where's the plus? Like, cool. Most of my friends were like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. High five. Let's go to dinner to celebrate.
Yes.
No celebration happening here. That's your expectation is you're not even meeting it at an A.
Yeah.
Expectations an A plus. Like a 4.0, you're not. What is a 4.6? Can that happen? And
Nope.
I was dyslexic and I didn't know that that was a lot of my struggle. So it just kept feeding into even more of like, if I'm just really good, if I'm just really good, they're going to not see all the other parts that's not perfect.
Yeah.
And when I went through the forgiveness program with my coach, it really came down to forgiving me. We stopped talking about forgiving the people, the things. It became all about me. Like, because at a certain point in all of our lives, we can't keep blaming the past for decisions we're making as an adult. Like at 45 years old, yes, did it suck that I was getting a beat down at 15? Absolutely. But I cannot keep using that as an excuse at 45 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so forgiving myself for making decisions that still stemmed from that trauma, I had to let it go, but I didn't know how to let it go. So then we started working through oh my God, that was a whole nother layer of, oh my God.
I'm curious because I think a lot of us can relate to the people pleasing and the good girl, myself included. Did you at any point figure out that you were also being a people pleaser for yourself?
Percent. And I heard somebody say one time that her people pleasing was so bad that when her husband was maybe showing signs of unhappiness towards her, that she was molding into what he needed, not for him, but to make herself feel better. And
Yeah.
it hit me so hard. My people pleasing wasn't really about pleasing other people. It was so I didn't feel uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel some kind of way. So 100% all of that was for me, not for
Yes.
them. But I called it people pleasing because that is the only way I can define it. So I was doing things for people, not 100% to support them, but was to not make me feel like I was not worthy or my value was, negative. Things like, and I didn't see that. I did not recognize that until forgiving myself was really where all of that started to, like, I started to peel the onions of, oh my gosh, my decision making was truly motivated by not feeling my lack of worth.
Do you feel like when you recognize that you were being a people pleaser mostly to yourself because you didn't want to feel uncomfortable, did you find it easier to become vulnerable with yourself?
Oh, yeah. Yes and no. Yes, because like, oh, I got the awareness, like, oh my gosh, it's me. But no, because the other way of being was so natural.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was what's familiar to me, whether it was miserable and negative and let me just use the word wrong because that's not really the thing because it didn't matter because that was familiar and
Yeah.
familiarity feels safer than unfamiliar, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, I'm seeking how to feel safe on a regular basis. And
That's
giving myself was very unsafe. It did. It felt unsafe, but it wasn't true.
I am curious because this is bringing up some things in my mind. Shedding the good girl persona, I think is hard for a lot of us. Do you feel like it's happening at a time in your life where it's about timing? Meaning, like, is it coming with age? Is it coming with wisdom? Is it coming with experience? Or is it coming with all of the above?
I think all of the above, but the catalyst for me is midlife perimenopause. Because I didn't know. I honestly, there's a study that shows that the highest level of suicide for women are between the ages of 40 and 55 or something like that. Like I don't know the exact numbers, but it's during menopause years.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure if it was just me. And I'm so tough on the inside. I'm like, oh, come on, you can deal with that. But at some point it didn't become about being tough anymore. It really was no. Something else is happening here, something that I can't figure out. And it's a drop in progesterone, right? It's a drop in estrogen. It's all of these things that are actually physically happening to me that is attributing and contributing to my internal meltdown
Yes.
I wasn't seeing.
I ask you that because I turned 50 in August of last year, and at some point in 2025 I also started menopause. And my brain is not the same. I'm not talking about the brain fog, like yes, that's there, but I'm talking about my mentality. Like there's this, I mean, you know me, you know how I am and who I am, but like I don't know, like I'm coming into this era of like I don't care how anyone else perceives me now. Like, I don't care what people think I should or should not do with my life. Hell, I don't even care what I thought I should do with my life. Like my old mentality, I'm like giving it the middle finger because I'm like, there is something chemically going on in the brain where I'm like, no, I'm not putting up with the BS anymore from myself or from others. And you turned me on to, I forgot her name, but she talks about menopause. And this is something that women actually go through during the perimenopause and menopause years of their life. And it was so affirming to hear that. So that's why I asked that question because I feel like, we don't talk about this stuff enough in terms of like menopause. I'm glad like these conversations are coming into play, but a lot of women probably don't realize that, that's something that can actually happen, that you actually go through where your brain is literally changing. It's mine.
Well, and the book or the podcast I turned you on to is Dr. Mindy Pell's, and
That's
she talks a lot about that. But I read this book called Transition, where it says that all transitions are met with an ending of something, right? So yes, absolutely that makes sense. But what I didn't recognize is transition as women, because we can't escape menopause. No woman gets to escape it.
Yeah.
All women go through a form of menopause. Our symptoms are just different, but it's also, interestingly enough, coincides with life changes. That part I didn't know. So here I am going through perimenopause and I'm deeply doing this forgiveness work. So that combined together was this perfect storm of, "Oh, it's about to be a breakdown to a breakthrough, sis. Like you can't avoid it. It's happening."
Wow.
And so I think the depth of my forgiveness just happened at the time where my physical body was already going through a major change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was able to kind of build it, like shape it together in a way it's like, okay, I'm not going crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this is okay. It's okay because I can't even imagine not knowing that my physical body is changing while my life is imploding. Like,
Yeah.
on a very literal, real level. It's not a thing I made up. My
Yeah.
business was stolen. I was being betrayed at a deep level. My life was ripping apart in terms of my relationships
Yeah.
on top of perimenopause. So for me, I feel like I almost look back now and go, of course, because it's either go big or go home. That's been my attitude forever, right? Like, it's part of the Gen X lifestyle. Like, oh yeah, make it till you make it, babe. That's what we grew up on. These are the ways of grind. Pff, yeah, duh. Like when somebody, I think it was you that was like, "Oh my God, you should read this book, Grit." I'm like, "Oh, it's written for us."
I have to read. I already know.
I'm so interested because I'm pretty sure it's just validating my already knowing. And I don't say that as if like no other generation, but I just know it from my own personal experience that we have a very, very large dose of bravery. Like, we are a generation of bravery. And so courage wasn't as big a deal. Like whenever, like you said, when you've been told, "Oh my God, you're so brave," you're kind of like, duh. That's not the problem. The courage, I think, myself and you and the women in our generation and some men too, is to pipe it down a bit.
Yeah.
Like, take that courage that's 100,000 million, level and take it down to like 500.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're going to be okay. Yeah. You don't have to be.
I think our death is feeling like, wait, what? What do you mean? take a nap. I can't take a nap.
I still can't. I still feel guilty taking a nap.
Yeah.
Even though my body in its menopausal state is like, no, you need to. There's still that guilt. I don't know if that's also something our generation kind of faces. I know we're not trying to make this into a generational thing, but we just happen to be a part of the Gen X and we're going through similar situations.
He's speaking to our people. I mean, people who are really going to gain a lot of perspective in this conversation with us are midlifers that are also questioning, like, why do I feel guilty just taking a nap? That's a real thing for us. It's not just a thing we're saying because it's a buzzword. It's really a struggle.
Well, but I think what's brilliant about this is yes, we are speaking to, people that are going through something similar because we're all part of the same generation. But, this is being recorded. This is digital. Like, um, you know, this is being preserved so that generations behind us can also refer to this and be like, compare notes and recognize what we went through versus what they're going through because their struggles are real too. They're just different. But I love that there's this preservation. I mean, a legacy of sorts, right? Because the menopause thing is not gonna change based on the generation, right? That is a biological, like you said, everyone goes through it. Just like everyone goes through grief, right? At some point, everyone is going to learn what grief is. It's almost like it's a rite of passage when it comes to life, right? So I'm glad that we are preserving this, so that future generations can take a look at this and be like, there's some wisdom right there with Wonderful sharing her journey with us. I want to make sure that we get to another question before we end this segment of the episode. So again, lots of things that just like really stood out to me. And here's another one. You talk about in chapter 2, being capable, quiet, and disappearing. And you talk about how strength became a hiding place. And you mention over functioning as safety. Now, I liken this to control over chaos. And I say this because for myself, I realize that I go into what I label as overdrive or executive mode. And when, things are just kind of starting to go awry. It's a strong suit of mine, but I also recognize that it's a coping mechanism. So I do it to exert control of myself internally when I cannot exert that control over the things that are happening around me externally. And an example that I can use is between 2021 and 2025, both my parents ended up in the hospital, my dad twice with life threatening situations. And ultimately, it's what took my dad's life in this past April. And I immediately, again, went into overdrive. And I knew it was, me making these decisions and critical thinking, part of their survival depended on it. But what I also recognized was that my survival also depended on it, like my emotional and mental survival. So it really did become a coping mechanism, but it was also a way for me to keep the vulnerability at bay. Because, like you, I do not. I really struggle being alone with my thoughts because I do not like being vulnerable with myself, especially in the face of grief. Right? I'm learning to do it. So, in the context of over functioning, what do you mean by safety, over functioning as safety?
I didn't recognize it again until I started really going into this deep work of forgiveness that uh it is my way of distraction because when I'm doing and I'm over functioning, I don't have time. I ain't got time to think of my feelings or my thoughts or survival. It's not even I don't even associate survival to the definition of survival
Yeah.
because it's just an existence. Like,
Yeah.
well, this is
Yeah.
how I made it. And my evidence is it's pretty successful. Like, oh my gosh, I love my life, right? I mean, of course, there's many moments where it's like, oh my, burn this thing to the ground. But for the most part, I feel like I have had successful relationships with my children, with my husband, and I've been able to achieve the things I wanted to achieve. So over functioning was the result. If my definition of success is a result of my overfunctioning, well, heck yeah, I'm going to keep doing that. Like, why not? Why
Yeah.
would I do that? And then I started this forgiveness work, and it's like, actually, that's not fucking working. And it can't work because my physical body wants to take a nap. So how do I do that? How do I put that together? And I'm here going, why is my drive just going a little bit one notch down, and it's driving me nuts? I'm like, no, I want to stay up till midnight finishing this email, blah, 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 whatever. My body's like, cannot shut down now. 'Cause it's not even a slow process. And I started looking at, like what you said, my overfunctioning is a result of how I deal with how I control my environment, which is a response to my coping mechanism. It's how I was able to really, because I got so good at paying attention to what my dad was being in that moment, that's how I was responding to it. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." I was so vigilant, like hyper vigilant about my surrounding, that I didn't recognize that I had been tense, like internally tense like this as part of my over surviving. And that's why when people kept saying, when my life was falling apart and people kept saying, "Oh my gosh, you're so strong," I actually got annoyed by it because I'm like, I just don't know how. I don't even understand what that means. I don't understand what that means.
Before. Yeah. Like it doesn't make sense because survival is the only option.
Right. Strength is the only mechanism that
Yeah.
I know how to use. It's just in different scales, like strength 1, strength 2, strength 3, superhero strength, right?
Yeah.
That is the way that I know. And in the forgiveness, part of the reason I want to start sharing my story is because the softness that I am becoming, not soft like, Pillsbury Doughboy type soft, but softening I am now, for the first time in my entire 52 years of life, and I do count baby versions of me, is I am willing to put my armor down. I want to take it off the way that my breath is being stifled because it's so heavy. Like, to take it off and lay it on the ground is actually not a concept anymore. It's something I'm willing to do.
That's huge.
That was a very defining moment of what forgiveness means to me.
Wow.
Like, I remember, I think I had to take 3 months off of life, like legitimately not walk away from life for 3 months. Not walk away as like my husband can't get a hold of me and my kids are like, "Where'd mom go?" Not that kind, but to
Yeah.
walk away from my everyday normal existence and just sit with myself. And I started off by doing this thing called shut the fuck up mornings, because I'm such a doer. I'm such a task oriented person. Like, I have existed where every morning I have a list, and that list was created the night before. And that list was going to get taken down every day. It was like me and that list, we're going rounds and rounds, and it's getting taken down. And I even got to the point where every time I accomplished the list, I'd be like, victory. Yeah. Well, in the shut the fuck up mornings, I couldn't even look at a list. And that first 2 weeks, I couldn't, it was so hard. Like, I couldn't figure out how to not do something. Just sit there and enjoy the experience of being there.
Yeah.
That was, I recognized that overstimulation, overdoing, or thinking, or planning for me was the most familiar place of safety. Although it was breaking me down. It was My physical body was like, don't think so. I didn't care. I was going to run it to the ground.
So in some regards, then your not only your psychological safety, but your physical safety when you were younger, was dependent on you over functioning, right? You had to like recognize patterns, especially where it came to your dad, so that you could keep yourself safe, right? So
Yes.
in some regard, the over functioning definitely was like it was a coping mechanism, but it was a valid coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you carried it through and are now in this place where you're like, I don't necessarily need all of that now.
Right.
And I completely understand that. I like you, I was a caretaker for my dad and his last like 7 months, and I was managing everything. His the household finances, his care, all of the hospital like administrative stuff. And I'm a doer like you too. I thrive on that kind of stuff. Like that
Right.
makes me happy. Like, again, part of it is being a coping mechanism, so I don't have to deal with the grief. But I will tell you, like losing my dad was like you can attest to, losing a parent is one of the hardest things that you'll go through. But I was like in a place where I just was like, I need a break from my life. Like I've
Yeah.
never felt like I needed a break from my life in the way that I did after my dad had passed because I was so immersed to the point where it became my identity. And I also know too that my dad would not have wanted that for me because he was always very encouraging of me, like being independent and living my life. And, so it was a weird place to be in, to be like, wait, not that no one could find me, because I still have
Yeah.
responsibilities, but, just of like, I don't want to deal with this for like 3 months, like you were saying. So that really, I can completely relate to that. But it's such a big deal for you to get to this point where you're like, wait, I don't need this armor for safety now.
Yeah. That I think that my forgiveness coach, Brenda, it took time to chisel that off of me because I was holding on to it tightly. I was like, You cannot." It was my security blanket. It was the way. And now that I've laid it down and it's still fresh. I just took it off yesterday. Let's be completely honest here. It wasn't like, oh, it's been 5 years since I haven't worn that armor. No, no, no. Like literally my 52nd birthday, I put it down. That was just in December. So because it's so fresh and new, I live in a different kind of, I just want to say this, it's not a scary world because
Yeah.
it's so unknown. Because part of it is like, well, I don't have armor. I'm easier to penetrate it for pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's why this is a big move for me. That one of the things I decided was when I laid down that armor, I guess it's time. I
Yeah.
guess it's time to see if there's going to be arrows thrown at me without my armor on, and am I willing to die to that? Is it okay? Is it okay for me to die to my old self to realize you asked me earlier, what did I have to become? It really is more about a remembering because I think for me, I've already become all the things I needed to be, all of my healing, right? Like I already have become all the versions of me I needed, but it's now remembering who I've always been in the same matchup as who I've been becoming, who I have become. So now that is the new existence. That's the tough, because it sounds kind of like cheesy. It's like, well, now it's a tough skin, but I'm soft. Like, ugh, that sounds so contradictory because I am softer internally,
Yeah.
but I also am less afraid externally.
I mean, contradiction is okay, right? Because I think we do liken like armor to like being, tough physically, mentally. But
Mm.
what I'm getting out of this is that you are giving me permission to go ahead and put down the armor, but I can still remain very soft and very feminine, but still be very strong without that armor. And I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at it, because I think a lot of us women can attest to just having that armor and, really fending off, and feeling there's a vulnerability, right? When you're putting down that armor, it's like, here I am. But, you're, for lack of a better term, a survivor, and you're going to continue to, regardless of the arrows, if they come, that get shot at you, right? So,
So I think the other thing I learned in my forgiveness work is that even true? Is it really true that these arrows are coming at me? Or is it something that they say if you want it enough, it'll show up? Or is it something that I'm creating into my existence because it is so I have to do a lot of that processing in my own self of like, what do I want to be true? And then what is actually true?
like, what are the stories that you're creating versus like what's
Right.
happening out
Because
there, really?
don't think there are actually really arrows out there. And if they are, I can I feel like I can matrix it because I mean, I can bend spoons, I'm pretty sure. Metaphorically for sure right now. But I feel like that's where the growth in me is happening. And what's interesting too is then I got on some hormone replacement, which it's not for everyone. Like it just was right for me. And there's been kind of like a lot of negative, I think from the 60s, the women that were using that type of hormone therapy, there's just a lot of negative press around hormone therapy. But then as I kept researching more and I recognized that, yeah, that is missing parts of me. When I got on my hormone, and mind you, I also listened to myself intuitiously. I didn't get on all the things that everybody and their mother says, oh, I did da, da, da. I kind of tested it all out. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, okay, yeah, it works. Yep. So all of it is kind of a wholeness, right? It's
Yeah.
all holistically coming together in a way where I don't need all of the extra things, but I do need this one thing. And it is
Yeah.
helping through the forgiveness work. My armor has been set down and that's working too. But I think for me, the greatest lesson of my breakthrough is trusting me.
Yeah.
That is the actual breakthrough is I can gather and listen to as much information as I believe I need, and then sit with myself and follow the intuition that I know is already within me that's helped me survive this long.
I love that because what I'm hearing is that you're able to filter out what information is needed for you versus the discernment. What we, going back to talking about discerning between a breakdown and a breakthrough. I think your discernment muscle has grown a lot, right? It's gotten really strong. And I would also argue,
Bodybuilder right now.
yeah,
Bodybuilder.
see, that toughness never goes away. It never goes away. And I would also argue that, we talk about the arrows and, wait, am I creating these stories? Are they real? But I would argue that you now have this like discernment muscle that's really strong where you're going to be able to discern, are those arrows external? Are they self-inflicted?
It's a good one. Yes, absolutely.
All right. I think that's the key is that you have this keen sense of discernment now. And maybe the discernment is likened to the intuition. Whatever it is, it's working for you. And, wonderful. I'm so excited to get to, have an additional conversation with you about your journey. But I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us thus far. And this has been so eye opening. And I love it because, you and I literally have 6-hour conversations on the phone. And I feel like people are getting a glimpse into, this right here was just an example of the kind of discussions that we have. So I am excited to continue this conversation. But thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. As always, it is so very much appreciated. And I always learn something. Every single conversation that we have, I always learn something and I'm that much richer for it. So thank you.
Me too. Like ditto on the umpteenth level because I do same feel so invigorated and inspired. And listen, audience, our 6-hour conversation, it's not like 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're talking like, oh, I think I'm available at 8 p.m. And it's like, oh my God, it's 3 a.m. I got to get off the phone. And I walk away from that like I'm physically tired, but my energy is so fulfilled. So I'm just very, very grateful for this opportunity because I didn't want to do this alone, but I also knew that it had to be the right partnership in how this story unfolds and what this series is really about. We are here my number one vision and mission for this book and this story is to spread wisdom, not just through me, but through you and through other people who resonate with this and go, okay, me too.
Yeah.
Like that's our goal. I feel like that's the only path that I want to be on right now is to spread the wisdom and be like those walking monks. Have you guys heard about this?
No, what is this?
Oh my gosh, it's called the Walk of Hope, where there's a group of monks walking from Texas to DC.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty fascinating. Y'all should look it up if you're interested in it. I saw it today and I was like, that's what I feel like this is that when we spread wisdom, like you said earlier, the legacy isn't about like this boastful, braggy space. Legacy is really about how we support generations we'll never meet,
Yeah.
learn how to exist in a place that brings them joy, that they are able to receive, and that they give themselves permission through people that they don't know, because that's how we've gotten it. Like, I've never met my grandmother, but I think about her often enough as a relation to who I am today. Like, oh,
Mhm.
all the stories I've ever heard about her, I get it now.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I have in my dad's office downstairs, he's got 6 generations of his forefathers on the wall. And so this is going back to my great 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 grandfather. And he's got the handlebar mustache, he's got a rifle in his hand. But I'm like, it's so I've never met him obviously before, but I feel so connected to him. You know, I want to say like you're building a time capsule, but it's in a way that the information that you are giving us, it transcends time, right? So while this is a time capsule, you know, what we're talking about, it's never going to go out of style, right? Like what you and I are talking about, like we said, everyone goes through menopause. Like everyone is going to go through this. No amount of AI is ever going
Right.
to change that unless you become a robot, which, you know, I don't think that's going
You don't have to deal with that.
Good for you.
imagine a life without a reproductive system. So I think that that's the key is like this transcends time. And so you're building this legacy, like you said, for people we don't even know that hopefully will view this and gain something out of it. So with that said, wonderful. Again, thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And until the next time, see you later, alligator.
As we close this space, thank you for listening with presence. If something in today's episode stirred recognition, a quiet yes, or a feeling you have not had words for before, that is not something to rush past. Let it settle. Her truth revealed is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you are beneath the life you learned how to survive. Wherever you are in your midlife journey, hear this clearly. You are not late, you are not behind, and you are not doing this wrong. You are unfolding exactly as you are meant to. We will keep walking this path together, one truth at a time. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and keep listening for your truth.